The Stoic secret to handling rejection like a boss. You put yourself out there, you try, you hope, and then nothing, no callback, no response, just silence. That sinking feeling in your gut, that moment of self-doubt, that's rejection, and it happens to everyone. But what if rejection wasn't a problem at all? What if it was your greatest weapon? What makes the difference? It's not luck, not talent, not circumstances, it's mindset. And over 2,000 years ago, the Stoics mastered the art of emotional control. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal. Epictetus, once a slave, was denied freedom. Seneca was exiled, yet none of them let rejection define them. Why? Because they understood a fundamental truth. Rejection isn't a dead end, it's a redirection. Today, you'll learn how to handle rejection like a Stoic, with clarity, composure, and absolute control. By the end of this video, you won't just endure rejection, you'll use it to your advantage. Why rejection is a gift, if you know how to use it. Rejection. Most people fear it, they take it personally, they let it break them. But what if rejection wasn't something to avoid, but something to master? History's strongest minds didn't just endure rejection, they thrived because of it. Marcus Aurelius was betrayed by those closest to him. As emperor, he faced relentless criticism, opposition, and personal losses. But did he crumble? Number. He stayed focused, reminding himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Real strength comes from within. Seneca, once a powerful advisor in Rome, was exiled and left with nothing. Most would sink into bitterness, but instead he used his time to sharpen his mind, writing some of the most powerful Stoic wisdom that still influences the world today. What does this mean for you? Rejection isn't the end, it's a tool. It reveals who is mentally strong and who lets emotions take over. But here's the real question. Will rejection control you, or will you control it? Because once you learn how to handle rejection like a Stoic, nothing will shake you again. Let's dive into the 5 powerful Stoic techniques that will change how you respond forever. 5 Stoic techniques to control emotions in the face of rejection. The Dichotomy of Control, mastering your response to rejection. Rejection happens to everyone. A job application gets ignored. A potential client says no. A relationship doesn't work out. For most people, rejection feels personal. It stings. It makes them doubt their worth. They start overanalyzing, asking themselves what they did wrong and why they weren't good enough. But the Stoics understood something crucial. Rejection itself is neutral. It only affects you if you let it. Why? Because rejection is external. You don't control other people's opinions. You don't control their decisions. You don't control whether someone accepts or rejects you. But you do control something even more powerful, your response. This is what the Stoics called the Dichotomy of Control, a simple yet life-changing principle. There are things you control, and there are things you don't. Once you accept this, rejection stops being painful. It just becomes information. Take Epictetus, for example. He was born a slave. He had no wealth, no privileges, no control over his circumstances. His own master physically crippled him. Most people in his position would feel defeated. They would believe life was unfair. But Epictetus refused to let external circumstances define him. He focused only on what he could control, his thoughts, actions, and mindset. And because of that, he rose from slavery to become one of the greatest philosophers in history. Now think about your own experiences. You get rejected from a job. A relationship falls apart. Someone ignores your message. Most people let rejection consume them. They dwell on it. They let it shake their confidence. But a Stoic asks a different question. What part of this is in my control? Maybe you can't change the rejection itself, but you can control how you frame it. Instead of thinking, "I got rejected," say this instead: "I just received valuable feedback. This was redirection, not rejection. This is an opportunity to grow stronger." Rejection only hurts when you resist it. But when you accept it, reframe it, and move forward, you become untouchable. And yet, knowing what you can and cannot control is just the foundation. The next step? Learning how to mentally prepare for rejection before it even happens. Because the Stoics didn't just react to setbacks, they anticipated them. They trained their minds to expect rejection, hardship, and loss, so that when those moments came, they were ready. That's where the next technique comes in. Premeditatio Malorum. Expect and accept the worst rejection hurts most when it catches you off guard. The unexpected blow shakes your confidence, making you feel unprepared and vulnerable. But what if you had already seen it coming? What if, before it even happened, you had prepared your mind for the worst? The Stoics had a strategy for this. They called it Premeditatio Malorum, the practice of mentally preparing for adversity before it arrives. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers and Roman emperors, used this every single day. He didn't wake up hoping for an easy life. Instead, he asked himself, "What difficulties will I face today? Who might insult me? What setbacks could arise?" By doing this, he removed the element of surprise. No challenge could truly shake him because in his mind, he had already faced it. This technique wasn't about being pessimistic. It was about being ready. Imagine you have a big job interview. Most people walk in hoping everything will go perfectly. But a Stoic? They ask themselves, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe the interviewer is cold and uninterested. Maybe they ask a tough question you weren't prepared for. Maybe you don't get the job. Now, if any of that happens, will you break down? Or will you handle it with composure because you already expected it? This applies to every part of life. A difficult conversation, a public speech, a first date. The fear of rejection loses its power when you have already prepared for it. Try this exercise. Before any important situation, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? If it does, how will I respond? By doing this, you shift from fearing rejection to anticipating it with confidence. Instead of reacting emotionally, you act with control. Because the truth is, rejection isn't what breaks people. It's the fact that they weren't ready for it. But with Premeditatio Malorum, you will always be ready. Voluntary discomfort. Training yourself for tough situations. Most people fear rejection because it makes them uncomfortable. They avoid situations where they might fail, where they might hear no, or where they might feel unworthy. But what if you could train yourself to handle discomfort before it even happens? The Stoics had a simple but powerful philosophy. If you expose yourself to hardship voluntarily, nothing can shake you when it happens unexpectedly. Imagine you're one of the wealthiest men in Rome. You have luxury at your fingertips, warm baths, fine food, soft silk robes. Now, imagine stripping it all away, sleeping on a hard floor, eating nothing but bread and water, wearing the roughest clothes. That's exactly what Seneca did, voluntarily. Why? To train himself to face hardship before it ever arrived. He didn't do this because he had to. He did it because he knew that by willingly embracing discomfort, he would never fear losing what he had. If you can endure hardship by choice, rejection loses its power over you. Think about it. Most people avoid rejection because they don't want to feel the sting of failure. But if you have already trained yourself to face small discomforts, a major setback won't crush you. You'll already be prepared. Here's how you can apply this in your own life. Once a week, Deliberately put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Try going an entire day without checking social media, resisting the urge to seek validation. Say no to instant gratification. Skip the easy dopamine rush of junk food, endless scrolling, or unnecessary spending. Or even better, put yourself in situations where rejection is possible. Ask for a discount when you know you won't get it. Start a conversation with a stranger. Pitch an idea to someone out of your league. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, but over time, you'll build resilience. And when real rejection comes, you won't flinch, because you've already been there, you've already trained for it. And just like Seneca, you'll realize that there was never anything to fear in the first place. The art of silence, responding to rejection with composure. Most people react to rejection instinctively. They defend themselves, they over-explain, they get emotional. But the more you react, the more power you give away. The Stoics knew that silence is a weapon. The less you say, the more control you have. Cato, one of Rome's most respected Stoics, was often mocked and criticized by his political rivals. They insulted him, tried to provoke him, and expected him to lash out. But instead of arguing or defending himself, Cato simply remained silent. He refused to react. And over time, his silence became his strength. His enemies grew frustrated. They became reckless. But Cato, he remained composed, always in control. Why does this work? Because when you don't react emotionally, you force the other person to reveal their own weakness. Now, think about how you typically respond to rejection. Maybe you try to justify yourself. Maybe you get defensive. Maybe you feel the urge to prove your worth. But what if, instead of reacting, you just paused? Here's how to apply this in real life. Next time you face rejection, stop yourself from reacting immediately. Instead of explaining, instead of apologizing, instead of trying to change the other person's mind, pause for 3 seconds. This moment of silence does 2 things. First, it keeps you from saying something out of impulse that you might regret. Second, it makes the other person feel the weight of their words. And here's the secret. Most of the time, people expect a reaction. When you don't give them one, you remain in control. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You don't need to justify yourself. Silence speaks louder than words. And once you master it, rejection will never shake you again. Reframing rejection. Seeing it as a redirection. Rejection feels like failure. It feels like an ending. But in reality, rejection is often just redirection, a course correction pushing you towards something better. The Stoics understood that events are not inherently good or bad. They are simply events. It is our interpretation of them that gives them meaning. Think about Thomas Edison. He failed over 1,000 times before finally inventing the light bulb. When asked about his failures, he didn't see them as defeats. Instead, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." He didn't see rejection as the end. He saw it as feedback, as a necessary step toward success. Now, apply this to your own life. You get rejected from a job. Instead of seeing it as a personal failure, ask yourself, what is this leading me toward instead? Maybe it's guiding you toward a better opportunity, one more suited for your skills. A relationship ends. Most people dwell on the pain, asking, what went wrong? But a Stoic shifts the question to, how is this helping me grow? Maybe it's freeing you from something that wasn't truly right for you, opening space for something better. Here's how to apply this mindset in daily life. Whenever you face rejection, pause and reframe the situation. Instead of saying, "This is happening to me," say, "This is happening for me." Instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" Reframing rejection doesn't mean ignoring the disappointment. It means recognizing that every rejection contains an opportunity if you are willing to see it. And once you shift your perspective, rejection will never feel like failure again. It will simply be a new direction. Rejection is inevitable, but how you respond to it, that's entirely in your control. Today, we've broken down 5 powerful Stoic techniques to help you handle rejection with absolute composure. First, control what you can. You can't always change the outcome, but you can control your reaction. Shift your focus from external events to your own mindset and actions. Second, expect rejection. When you prepare for setbacks in advance, they lose their power over you. Instead of being caught off guard, you meet them with calm acceptance. Third, train for discomfort. If you willingly expose yourself to small rejections and challenges, you build the resilience to handle anything life throws at you. Fourth, master silence. The less you react emotionally, the more power you hold. Instead of defending yourself, embrace the strength of composure. Finally, reframe rejection. It's not a failure, it's a redirection. Every rejection is guiding you towards something better if you choose to see it that way. Now the question is, will you let rejection define you, or will you use it to your advantage? Rejection isn't the end, it's just the beginning of something better. If you want to build true mental resilience, start applying these Stoic techniques today. And if you want to take your emotional mastery even further, check out this next video where we break down more Stoic strategies to help you dominate any challenge in life.